Welcome, 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 everybody. We are live on YouTube and on Facebook. Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared, with your hosts Scott, Shane, and Paris. Today is the last episode. So on the last recording day of the
It's
month.
the last episode?
No, it's not the last. It is the last episode. No, on the last day of recording, the last Wednesday of the month, our live is always usually a world update for the month that has just passed. And with what's happened in September of 2025, we probably could do 2 or 3 hours, several episodes. So we're going to try to break down some of the highlights, some of the crazy that's happened in September of 2025. But before we do that, before we jump into that, I want to let everybody know that one of our affiliates, the affiliate that we actually promote quite a bit, is the one that has the highest quality nutritional products that we've seen for the lowest prices with full transparency on the ingredients. Last couple of weeks, we've shared with you some of the different products that are coming out of that. This week, I want to share with you their liver support. Liver support. Right now, liver support, with all the toxicity in the world, our livers need to be strengthened, they need to be supported, and they need to be cleansed and helped as much as possible. Whether you're taking prescription medicines or you've got other toxins from just the foods that we're eating, you're going to want to have some way to support your liver. Also, if you're looking at a parasite cleanse in the near future, because that's a pretty popular thing, or at least has been, you're going to want to have all of your pathways, all your exit strategies, all your exit pathways as clear as possible and as working as strongly as possible to make sure that all of those yucky bugs get out of you. So get your liver support. Go to preppertalkradio.com/goodlife. And that is the opportunity page, but there's actually a page where you can click and look at the products, look up their liver support. I promise you're not going to find a better product for a lower price anywhere on the internet. And if you become a member, you get member pricing, which is even less, just a few dollars above wholesale. So totally worth it, in my opinion. And also remember to go to our website, our Facebook page, Emergency Preparedness and Self-Reliance. We're growing that as well. And we're looking to have more community over there and get some information going and sharing some information there too. So thank you so much for being here tonight with us, Scott, Shane. Where do we even start with this month?
That would be my question. Like Rebecca said here, says, the world seems like a different place since the last live. 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the questions I wanted to ask y'all is, with the Charlie Kirk thing, what was your initial reaction? How did you feel? What emotions did that bring up and bring out to you? And then how do you feel? But how do you feel now? What has been a week or so? And
almost 2
weeks. And the way things have changed since then.
2 weeks. How do you
feel now about it? I mean, it's.
So my initial reaction the day of, I was homeschooling the kids. I was here doing school with the kids, and my wife texted me that he'd been shot, and I was like, "What? At UVU?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was just this. What? And then as soon as I heard the news later that he had died, I was just like. Well, yeah. There was a heaviness, and I'm like, I don't watch his stuff. I don't he pops up in the feed all the time. And I'm like, oh, cool. Someone that's fighting for good. Right. Do I 100% agree with everything he says? I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know the guy, but what I've seen, he's always been courteous in his Discord, always open to conversation. But what was really interesting to me was this, and I feel like the nation's felt it. Anyone with feeling has felt it. There was a monumental heaviness that struck, and you know that the world just lost a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me because the majority of what I see is the coverage of the crazy that surrounded it, the coverage of the news of the shooter, the coverage of people who celebrated it, which is disgusting. It's atrocious. Don't celebrate anybody's death. But the thing that was really interesting to me was they talk about the politics more than they talk about his faith. And I'm like, dude, I think it needs to be talked about his faith more than his politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because his last few minutes before that one question, he just spent 30 minutes talking about God, bearing testimony of Jesus Christ, talking about his relationship with as he calls us, the Mormons, right? In Utah, he's like, half my company is Mormon. and the community of Christ at large, right? Talking about the scriptures, talking about the gospel. And I honestly am like, yeah, there goes a really good man. But this is gonna change so much. And so I give my reverence to that moment, to his family, to God above all. That's why we do the podcast, right? We do the podcast because we want to be of service. Are we the best voice for Christianity? No. Are we an attempted voice for the responsibilities of liberty and Christianity? Yeah, we're attempting. We're trying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't want to bring that up to, really go down the rabbit hole. I just wanted everyone to kind of recognize where you started that day and where we're at now. Like Rebecca brings up here, something stinks. I mean, and not just that, it's the way it's being used, like you say, being politicized, being used for others' benefit. They're taking advantage of the situation and using it for themselves. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that stinks. Yeah. But I didn't want to really get into it, but just recognize how different the world is just from that event.
Right? I just know that I was very embarrassed that it happened in my hometown. It happened in my area. Like Utah is supposed to be a conservative place. It's supposed to be we love the Second Amendment here. Usually we have, how many different places that promote constitutional education are out of Utah. There's just a ton of that. And there's like, what, how did that happen in my backyard? And, I definitely felt a heaviness, Scott. That heaviness hit me hard too. My wife and we wept actually when we heard the news that he'd passed away and that he'd been shot. I think more than anything, it was the reality of how just blatantly in our face it was. Recorded, videotaped, recording. There's a couple, there's a pro and con to that. The pro is that we have evidence. We can go back and look frame by frame in many of these videos, and we can see what maybe really did happen. And so, there's a lot of conspiracies that are going on around it. And I'm right there with a lot of them, but I also know that I want to give it some time to kind of shake out before I give a full support to any one of them. But I do know that something stinks. Just really quickly, my dad watched the memorial on Sunday, which was September 21st, interestingly enough. That, he said, was one of the most spiritual revival type meetings he'd ever experienced. I know Glenn Beck has even come out, and he was on the front row, second row. And he said, in my whole life, I have, that is one of the most spiritual events I've ever been to. And Glenn Beck shares the same faith that we do. And so we know some of the potential spiritual experiences he's had in his life. And to have him say that is really cool. I think it caused a polarization, and is causing a unification in some ways and a polarization in other ways. And I think that J.D. Vance even said, he came out and said, he says, in my whole presidency or politically, I've always been nervous to speak my mind about my religion. But he says, from now on, I think it'll be okay. I think I'll be able to actually speak about my faith as I'm also taking my role as the vice president. And I think one of the things that this is doing is giving permission to, I think for the longest time, we've seen the liberal voice, the woke voice has been so loud, has been so proud, has been so in our faces. I think this has given the courage to the conservative voice, to the Christian voice, to be able to say, you know what, we don't want to necessarily drown, but we want to match that. And maybe we will drown it. And I think Megyn Kelly said it the best. He's like, I don't think we're going to get the left and the woke to change. But we can change, we can rise up, and we can bring light to all the darkness. And, again, was it conspiracy? Was it another country? Was it really this kid? I have my thoughts and feelings about that. At the end of the day, though, I felt a spiritual something move and stir within my soul. And so whatever machinations of the evil ones, whatever machinations that the secret combinations or the deep state or whatever they're doing, I'm going to be watchful for that. I'm going to be paying attention to that. But what I'm really paying attention is that I was moved. I was stirred. I was like, Paris, time to wake up and start talking more about your faith and bring more light, build light in the world. and don't be scared for that anymore. And so that was something that I really, that was what my kind of movement, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I could say a lot more on that, but yeah, I'd probably rather not.
We can get ourselves in a lot of trouble if we delve into the.
I mean, I didn't watch the memorial, and I hear it was pretty amazing. I just would want to say, kind of closing out this topic, please, let's close it out, is beware. I mean, be cautious about, yes, it makes me feel good, right? Like you say in Paris, it is like a revival. But, and I don't know how to say it, there is an aspect of some type of false light, false revival in this, right? It's being manipulated. It's partly being used for other purposes. So I just say, be careful, watch for how that may affect you and draw you in where you maybe otherwise shouldn't.
Yeah.
All make sure the world's a stage, right?
Yep.
They will never not take an opportunity, right? They will always take opportunity where opportunities pop up to force agendas and spin narratives. So I will say this in the closing of that topic. I watched the entirety of that event, and it was awesome because it was a Christian Revival concert for the first 4 hours of the broadcast of the stream. It was awesome. And then it went to the speakers, and it was mostly good. There were some that I was just like, I won't say it. It was mostly good, but then it was finishing out strong with all the candidates, and not candidates, but political speakers. And then Charlie Kirk's wife, what she said was great. But then there was the dump of garbage after her speech. It was terrible. I was like, this is horrible. This is not in good remembrance. This is not in good purpose. It was politicized after that. And so it was hard. That part for me was extremely hard to watch, where Donald J. Trump started speaking. I'm like, this is completely destroying the spirit of what it was trying to do, it seems to me, right? But everything else that's been happening this month, because there's been a lot. There was a shooting that happened that same day. At the end of last month, we didn't even cover this. Trump disappeared for like 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys even talked about that or looked at that?
I looked at it a little bit because everybody was thinking he was dead or something happened to him. Or
23rd to the 27th. They're like, where is he? And JD Vance on the 24th is like, I'm ready to assume the presidency if something's happened to him or something will happen to him.
Pretty odd.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah,
right? So what? And then I mean, we can go into there's so much going on. There's so much going on. Even this morning, and what's the country? They just had a giant hole open up in the middle of the city.
Oh yeah, where was that? Bangladesh
Singapore?
Or something?
Bangladesh?
No, where was it? I just saw that video.
I was going to share it, then I closed that tab. But It's like, you never know what's going to happen. And we're seeing more and more disasters, right? We already have the war issue all over the world. The whole world is at war.
Bangkok.
Thank you, Bangkok. But like an entire section of the city just all because of a freak storm, supposedly. It completely decimated the infrastructure and giant sinkholes. But like in Utah, we've had 2 tornadoes, another earthquake, right? Minor earthquake. But like that's just in Utah. But
it was a very unique earthquake.
Yeah.
It was 68 meters deep, and you don't usually feel earthquakes that deep. And it was felt, and it was pretty big for how deep it was. Just very, very unusual, very rare type of earthquake.
And that's happening more and more all over the world.
Mm-hmm. And they had that one just off the coast of Russia that it was 8 point something, and then
last month.
Yeah, but then there was another one, like it was right a couple miles away from the one that was a 7.8 just a few months before that. Like last
another
year.
7.4 or 2 or something like that. Yeah. In the Kamchatka region there. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, however you pronounce. The only reason why I know how to pronounce any of those is because I played Risk.
Yeah.
And I took over those territories when I was playing Risk with my family. Come on.
Your
Come on.
civics
Who's a
and
risk lover?
geography
Put in the
classes
comments.
were covered by
If you
playing
love
Risk.
Risk, put a 1 in the comments.
There you go.
I have played it somewhat, and it's a fun game. It's a good game. But the other big item that was on the 20th is that the Feds, U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, gave a warning of an Al Qaeda plot, Islamic terror plot, horrific multi-city attacks coming to sow confusion and cripple emergency response. That they've, and I don't know how they know this, but they have purchased large quantities of police and first responder uniforms, and they're focusing on hospitals and medical facilities. How do they even know that stuff, right? I mean, they're supposed to be all knowing, but I mean, we've seen warnings like that before, right? In the past months or so. Oh, there are terror cells all throughout the U.S. that are about to be activated because of Iranian. Maybe it's just fear mongering, right? And I think it's all meant to cut, just kind of like, well, I won't go there, but it's meant to cause confusion and chaos.
Yeah.
And kind of like this week, we're going to talk some more about what was supposed to happen yesterday, right? And potentially this week. And where's that going to go? My eyes wide open, as you can kind of see here. I'm really surprised at how much I've seen of this, right? How many people actually are taken in,
So, okay, we're on it. We're here. Let's talk about the rapture. Or in other words, the greatest Christianity psyop that's continually repeating itself, because there was supposed to be a rapture last year and the year before, and it was supposed to happen yesterday,
decades ago, and
we're all still here. All of our audience is still here. I'm not seeing. I mean, maybe it did happen. I do not see field tack, at least not yet. But yeah, who knows? I would venture to say nothing happened.
Well, one of the scriptures, I'm not sure where the rapture. I've studied the Bible quite extensively, and I understand that it says there that the saints will be caught up to meet him when he comes. And then there's other scriptures though that says in Revelations chapter 7, it talks about how will we know who are they're talking about the people with the talking about the 100. I think they just came through the 144,000. They're talking about the people who have God written in their foreheads, something like that. And then it says, these are they that came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Well, to me, that means that those are the people who made it through. They came out of the tribulation. They went through it. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that have a greater blessing, and they have white robes and made blood in the Lamb. Those are the ones that I would there. I don't know of anywhere where it says that you're going to be caught up before tribulations. This verse says that the ones that are going to be the righteous, white robes and washed and have all the extra blessings from God are going to be those that made it, that came out of great tribulation, that went through the great tribulation, which means I don't know. That's one of the scriptures I base my personal belief on, that we're going to go through it and then afterwards be caught up, but not escape.
Well, the problem is people look at Matthew 24 as the source of where the rapture comes from. That like 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken, the other left, right?
Oh, but then
they ignore the fact that later in that same verse, in those same verses, it talks about how it will be like in the times of Noah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the good weren't taken. The good were preserved. They were left.
The good were taken away, though. They were taken in the ark, right?
They were preserved in the ark, right? They had to go through the tribulation. That tribulation was a year long in the ark, right? But and how long did it take them to build that? Like over 100 years, wasn't it? Like the preparation time for that was huge.
Yeah.
And the time in the ark was a year roughly. So like and then you go into first or second Thessalonians talks about like we'll be taken up, right? There are when he comes again, we will go to meet him in the sky, right? That's the other part of the idea or philosophy behind it. But I believe it's after we go through the tribulation that we'll get to go meet him in the sky when he returns, right? But when he comes, he's coming as king, as ruler of all the earth, and it is in his robe of red.
In the meridian of time, when he came to the earth, he was the lamb. When he comes back, he'll be the lion, and that's when he'll tread down the nations. So I like what Rebecca posted in here. Man will not know the hour. So the scripture basically says that man will not know the day nor the hour of my coming. And it actually even says that Christ himself doesn't know. Only God, the Father, knows when that will happen. So let me just kind of share with you something that I've done in my studies to figure that out. And you can do your own research and verify what I'm saying. Please trust but verify. In the Hebrew tradition, they would change their month. Their month would change at the new moon. The new moon was never the same. It was never the same amount of days exactly. But when the new moon came, they knew that was time to start the new month, because the months were lunar back in the traditional Hebrew. And so what would come though is they would see the quarter moon, the 3/4 moon, and they would say, okay, the new moon, we can see the 3/4 moon, so the new moon is about to come. We don't know what day it'll come, but we know it's about to come, and it will come any day now. So the idea was that, like that tradition, that's what I believe what the Savior was referring to, is that we don't know the day nor the hour, like we don't know the day or the hour of the new month and the restoration or the renewal of the month to the new month, because we don't know when the new moon's actually going to come. But because you know a 3/4 moon, but it does say in the scriptures very easily that those who are watching carefully will know the signs, and they will be children of light. Even it talks about that, will know the signs and be ready for the time when he comes. So yes, we don't know the day or the hour, but I believe that we can predict within a very short window of time what might be a reality. Now, be careful with predictions, because I'm talking to myself here. I've totally screwed up predictions over the last 10 years more than once. So I don't really try to predict anymore, but I'm watchful. I try to stay watchful so that I can see when that 3/4 moon comes up. I'm like, okay, in the next couple of days, I don't know what day, I don't know what hour, but in the next couple of days, we should have a new moon and the new month is going to begin. And I believe that's where that quote comes from when you look at the Hebrew tradition of how they recognize the month starting again. So look that up and check that out, because I think that might be helpful to, because I feel like when people say, well, nobody knows, that just kind of says, well, that's kind of a scapegoat, or it's kind of an intellectual, you're not actually giving you're not actually watching. You're not actually studying the signs, because we're not supposed to be, we don't need to be studying the signs to believe. We need to believe. And as believers, we need to be watching for the signs. That's one of the things that differentiates, in my opinion, that scripture about those who are seeking for signs. If you're seeking for signs, you're what does the scripture say? If you're a sign seeker, you're an adulterous generation. So, but if you're watching for signs as a believer, if you're a watcher of signs, I think that's absolutely appropriate.
Yeah. And in my opinion, the heavens are there to show us signs. I mean, that's like, we could go deeper into that, but again, we talked a little bit about AI Atlas last month. Things are changing they don't even think it's a comet. They don't know what it is. It's completely different than a comet. It's not behaving the same. It's actually putting off its own light at this point.
Interesting.
And the size, I think they're still trying to determine the size. They've got some better ideas of the actual size of it, but just all it's not the same as a comet. The traits are not the same as a comet. So it's a sign. I mean, it's a sign of what? I don't know. Is it the sign of the coming of the Son of Man? Maybe. It's
another whale.
Yeah. Another thing too with all this, I was listening to a podcast, and one of the speakers, his name is Luke Belmar. He's a young guy, but he's got a lot of wisdom. He's studied some of the machinations of the deep state and other things, and he talks a lot about freeing yourself from the Fed and having all kinds of gold and silver as on hand as well. So I think he gets a few of the things. And one of the things he says, if you think that the AI that they've released is what they really have, You have no idea what's coming. You got the AI that we have is breadcrumbs compared to the feast of AI that they have that they're holding back and they're keeping from us. He says what they're giving to us is stuff that they had decades ago, and now they've developed stuff today that's blows everything. I mean, think about CERN. You think about the quantum computing that they do actually announce and talk about. I mean, just recently, I don't know, it was this last month, but I just don't know when it was. But recently there was a whole thing about Trump having the Stargate program. Mm-hmm. And if you study anything about Stargates, I know there was a great show on, I don't remember what channel, what the station had it, but there was a great show about Stargate. And those Stargates are actually, if you understand the occult, Stargates are actually ways the occults use to do spells and incantations and other things. They would actually create Stargates in ancient occult practices. And so to think that we have a Stargate now in our government having a program for that, I'm like, they're either dumb and they don't know what they're doing, or they know exactly what they're doing,
which is more likely.
And we need to be paying attention.
Well, that, and then there's also Golden Dome, right?
Right.
The cybersecurity, like all these levels of what are they doing to protect us, right? To then use those protections to then strip us of our rights. We are living in the biggest surveillance state in the history of the world, and we are not paying attention to it. Everyone's like, "Oh, China is a bigger surveillance state than America." No, it's not. China was a test run for a lot of these surveillance state systems, but we have more surveillance state going on anywhere than anywhere else. Say that again, Paris.
I say China's just more open about it. They're actually blatantly in your face. Where a lot of the stuff we have run into is probably the same level. It's just covert.
Ours is way more advanced. They've already turned on the consequence button.
Right? Oh, got it.
They've flipped the consequence button. Oh, you're not going to do what we want? Flip. You can't spend your money now, right? Oh, you're not doing what we want? Flip. You can no longer see doctors. Oh, you've got a baby, but you're not doing what we want? You can no longer buy formula. Like, they've already flipped those switches. Yeah. Here, it's different, right? Here, they're trying to move us so far into just being okay with whatever they do that we won't even fight back when they flip the switch.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious.
The scary thing about the conditions and situation in America. It's so much worse.
Well, thankfully, some countries, individuals are calling things out, like Russia calling out the other day that the Genius Act is going to be a reset button for the U.S., that they're going to basically, it's a crypto reset is what they're calling it. So they're calling that out. So have you seen that, Scott?
I haven't, but I did hear news that XRP got rejected as the platform for financial change.
Okay. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that was the base. They were going to use that as the foundation going forward for the central bank digital currencies.
So who knows what the plan is?
The US's version of it, right? Because it's no longer CBDCs. What is it going to be called? The DUSD, digital US dollar.
Well, that would be a digital currency, which is supposedly outlawed, right? And that's where the stable coin, the Genius Act, comes in and basically acts as the same thing, but does it goes a different way, and is actually worse than having a U.S. digital currency, which the U.S. dollar is pretty much digital anyway at this point.
If I remember correctly, and it's not fresh in my mind, but I think Catherine Fitz was talking about how the Genius Act has all these provisions in there for the digital IDs as well.
Absolutely, that's part of it.
Yeah, and so it's like, wait a minute, why is Trump promoting digital IDs and digital currency and everything digital? It's kind of like, I thought he was supposed to.
He's been promoting digital ID since his first presidency. Yeah, he's been pushing that. So
right, so that's just another one of those things. It's like, okay, keep an eye on it.
Exactly. A lot of things. Just if we're watching, you can add them up into one big picture.
Another thing that just happened, and I don't know if I don't want to hijack the conversation if we want to keep going this direction, but didn't Trump just sign a executive order making Antifa a domestic terror organization now? And I saw a whole thing where they've surrounded some building, and they're not letting employees get out of it. It's some government building, like a ICE building or something like that. I can't remember. They're surrounded some building recently, and I'm like,
is that where the shooting was down in?
They just became a domestic terrorist organization, and now they're out in the open surrounding a building. Like, get in there, it's
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know about
that. I think it's a slippery slope. I think that the reality is we do need to have, if there are people that are going to do damage. There was a couple years ago, there was a gentleman that was arrested and killed, and that caused a bunch of rioting and looting. And then last couple of weeks, somebody was killed, and there was no rioting and looting. And so that's something to take a note of. There was a revival of Christian faith and belief instead of rioting and looting. But I think that when you have organizations out there that are willing to do damage and terror, and they're now actually marked as a terrorist organization, that could give them some validity to maybe do more. So that's besides the Al-Qaeda threats, which who knows if those are false flags or not. But the reality is that we need to be watching and be aware of what's going on in our neighborhoods. Because again, Shane and I live really close together. Scott's a little further north, about an hour and change. We call this place where Shane and I live Happy Valley. It's called Happy Valley. And one of the greatest public assassinations just happened in Happy Valley. So if it can happen here, it can happen wherever you live. Like, that's just what I'm saying. Is that's another thing to think about. It's like, wait a minute, if something that egregious, that nefarious can happen in the Happy Valley, Utah, in Utah County, which was at one point the most conservative county in the country. If it can happen here, guys, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah. Well, a couple other things that I want to be sure to bring up that I think are really big deals. And I haven't really followed this really closely, but when Pam Bondi came out and said, "Hey, we're going to target hate speech. You can't say meaningful things against us," right? I mean, it seems like that's what she was inferring, right? Is that they're going to crack down on hate speech, which we know that's what the left has been saying for decades, right? Well, when did that change? And we know that's what's protected by the First Amendment,
or supposed to be.
Yes, I mean that's what it should protect the most. Something you don't want to hear, right?
Well, and it's interesting because the left is screaming that like Jimmy Kimmel got fired, and then I guess he's rehired now. I don't know what's going on at this point, but right, they're like, "Oh, it's an attack on the free speech." I'm like, no, there's worse things going on with that, but on the offset, like on the outside, he's getting consequences because the people who are paying the bills don't like what he said. That's different, right? That's a job. Free speech is beyond a TV show. Free speech is what we're doing right here, what we're doing when we're exercising our ability to communicate, our ability to go to church. Like that's the First Amendment. When the government censors it, that's when it's a problem. And the FCC, are they complicit in censoring that? I don't know. I think they are. I mean,
if you have a private organization like a corporation that makes a decision, that's well within their right to do. I think there's a lot more. The reality is his ratings were down. I think it was just bad timing. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and they're like, let's just do this because we've been looking about it and thinking about it. But they could have chose a better time, I'm sure, to do it instead, or waited and done it later, and then it would have been more realistic to why they really fired him, is because his ratings were down, and he wasn't pulling the crowds, he wasn't pulling the numbers, and the advertisers were upset with it, and that's also true.
Well, and what's interesting is there's this huge deal going on right now where I can't remember the name of the companies, but during that same time, they were buying out all the affiliate networks, and now 81% of the American affiliate networks of news and television across the country are owned by one group.
Wow. And
the FCC pushed to make that happen, all while Jimmy Kimmel was kicked off and channel values and platform values were decreased for a little bit because of the craziness of it. How is that not orchestrated so they can make a bigger move financially to power grab and allowed by the FCC? Like there's so much more going on. And what's interesting is now it's all owned, like Oracle, Larry Ellison, he's the one that owns it all now, right? It's in his management group, in it's in his pocket. Dude's 81, but and then there's the other problem with Peter Thiel and Palantir, but like Oracle, Larry Ellison, his son is running now. With this whole move, they were able to take control over CNN. His son owns, I think it's Warner Brothers Pictures and Warner Brothers Discovery and all these other things. Like they're grabbing all the media. These are the same guys that are doing the surveillance state of the United States, but it's all coming together. It's why for what purpose?
I was watching a Palantir. I think it might have been a TEDx or some kind of presentation that he was doing, and he had this drone that was like a suicide drone. You know, it was a little teeny one, and it literally, he showed this mannequin, and the drone hit the guy's, and it shot something in and like disintegrated the brain or what would be in this mannequin. He's like, these are the great new defense systems that we're going to start doing. I'm like, bro, if they deploy that on people, like there's some crazy ish going on. Another thing I just looked up, I remember somebody saying what was going on in Congress on September 10th. Like what was look over here, distraction, what's really going on? And apparently they passed the defense policy bill on September 10th, 2025. So in the House and the Senate, it passed the version of the annual defense spending bill, while the Senate blocked the Democratic effort to force the release of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. So I think the one of the things that Charlie was talking about was get these Epstein files out there, and they had a push to block those on that day. That was one of the big they had a meeting about it, and it got blocked on that very day as well. So it's all, I don't know. There's just too many weird things happening about what could possibly be a distraction, not.
Yeah. So just a quick thing I noticed here, Mike, Utah Mike put up a comment. It's not showing on YouTube, but it's showing on StreamYard, but it has a word in it that is probably being censored. Right? Do you see that one, guys? What I'm talking about? The Antifa word. It's not showing up on YouTube comment, but it is showing up in our StreamYard chat. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up. So they are listening. The algorithms are working. Unless it pops up somehow, but I'm not seeing it in my chat. I don't see it on my screen.
Let me look and see if I can bring it up on my.
Yeah, just anyway. Two other things that I think are super important that we need to be watching. Okay, have you heard what's happening in Venezuela?
No.
So what a good year ago, who is it? Milei, who was elected, and he took a chainsaw, right? That was they used the chainsaw for visualization. He took a chainsaw to their budgets. He cut budgets, he cut departments, and he took their inflation down from 300% down to 30%. And he was doing a killer job. And then all of a sudden it just flipped. They had some type of midterm elections or something, and the left just cleared house at like 47%. And I think there was something happened in his administration, like his sister was caught for being corrupt or something, and she took some money or something. I don't know exactly, but it flipped immediately. It went from Milei just killing it to all of a sudden 47%. Now the left is taking control, or
Venezuela.
Yeah, Venezuela. And that is basically crashing the currency and crashing everything because of loss of confidence and whatever. And so their peso is being dumped, and now Trump is having to step in with a rescue package, trading currencies to because they need US dollars to buy their currency to prop it up because it's crashing. So I just think that's really significant. I'm not 100% sure why, but other than he had made a huge change and it was working, and now all of a sudden it's not. Maybe I'm missing something there. Maybe you guys in the chat could bring something up about that. But
yeah, well, it's interesting.
At one point, I know Venezuela was holding out against the World Economic Forum or the banks.
They did take a big loan though. They took like a $40 billion loan.
Well, if once they take the loan, then now they're under the Rothschild banks. They're under those banks, the world banks, and that's once you're under the World Bank, they control your country.
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of talk right now about there's a certain country that now owns our country, right? What else got approved in the last big budget spend? Almost $900 million for one country, right? A country that we don't trust. It's a nation state over in the Middle East.
Well, there's quite a few of them. All over the world,
all over the world that we don't trust. But there's that major one.
Well, that's Sorry, I got so many things in my mind.
Well, it's interesting because I as you're talking about the censoring, there's another censored comment from Rebecca. I saw it in our feed over here, but I look over on YouTube, it's gone. And I replied to her feed comment, and my reply's up, but her comment's gone too.
Yeah.
Which one is hers comment?
It was about freedom of speech, FAFO, right? You should be allowed to say whatever you want to say. However, life will still provide consequences if you say something that you offend or hurt or is just insane. There's always the FAFO repercussions of our actions, right?
Crazy.
Why did he mention Nepal? That's a big deal, man. That is a real big deal. That Gen Z rose up and took over the government. Essentially, they didn't take over. They shut down what was going on. They ousted them. Big deal.
They had a new election
over Discord.
What?
Yeah. And that's huge, right? They're saying it's a legitimate coup. The military's already said, "Yep, we agree. We'll do what you say." Like the people have spoken. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's okay.
Pretty awesome. But I think like 51 protesters were killed over the past couple of weeks.
Well, I know that
first week of September or something.
There's a huge, just the same day or a few days later, this is September 12th, 13th, somewhere in there was a huge freedom of speech rally in the United Kingdom. And there was like hundreds of thousands of people. I want to say 1 million, but I don't remember if that's accurate. Lots of people came out to do that. And right now there's this huge popular comedian that is being censored and arrested. Even she fears that she's going to be arrested for us making some jokes that were about political jokes. It wasn't about anything that happened here in America, but it was something that over there, and she's got fear of being arrested. And so it's like, what's the attack? Like seems like there's a worldwide attack late in the last couple of weeks on freedom of speech, which is wild.
In the UK, they've already been citing and arresting people for the last, I think, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
For comments on social media and in the public. They don't have freedom of speech.
Well, I think that's where our VP went over there and just dropped the stick on them a couple months ago when they had that. I forget what the event was. Some meeting, and he just dropped the stick on him.
Summit.
And I forget when that was, but that was pretty impressive. There's Venezuela, there's Nepal. Of course, I'm going to talk about gold and silver. Obviously, that's always on my radar. Just continues to climb.
Huge jump.
Big jumps, 12 and 14% gold and silver this month's within the last 30 days. But also a big, huge change has been Ray Dalio. Have you heard what Ray Dalio said about your portfolio? He said everyone they're recommending 10% gold in your portfolio.
That's a big change. He was 3% before.
No, he said this in the last week or so.
But what was he saying before? Wasn't it like 3 to 5%?
Well, no, it's far less. They basically had zero, I think, is all he recommended. I mean, there's essentially zero. These brokerages don't recommend anything. And I think nationwide, the average is less than 1%. It's like maybe 0.5% on average. I think it's less than 0.5%. But now they're saying Goldman Sachs is saying 20%. Ray Dalio is saying 10%. And then there's another one. Who was it? My notes here. Jeff Gundlach, another big hedge fund guy. He's saying 25% that should have 25% of your portfolio in gold. And that's a big deal. I mean, even if the demand were to double from 0.5% to 1%, imagine what would happen to the gold and silver markets. Now, if people are really trying to get to 10, 15, 20, 25%, there's not enough gold in the world, especially not at today's prices. So, yeah, that's a big deal.
Oh, good.
Banks are
I'm at 32. I'm at 32.8%. Whew, okay, I'm good.
Me, I'm more closer to 100%.
I'm around 80%. I'm working on getting those numbers up.
Parrish, you need to. Well, I wouldn't say anything.
That 32% includes that's all precious metals for me. So, but what's also interesting,
we're going to go all precious metals, and obviously my number goes up a little bit higher.
Well, that's silver and gold basically, and gold backs. But I was just going to say the Fed lowered the rate this last week, and caused a huge change in the market, to try to stimulate the market. And I'm still kind of waiting to see what it'll actually do, because when you have that kind of a lowering of the rate, you're hoping that all the different mortgages and every other rates are going to come down. But there's so much chaos in the real estate market and the rate market. It's like, okay, let's just wait and see what this does. But that was something that happened recently as well. My high yield savings account just sent me an email saying, due to the rate cut, we're not going to offer 4% anymore. We're only offering 3.6. I'm like, come on, you jerks.
Here's another thing that popped up is one of the competitors that in my business, Sherwin-Williams is one of our competitors. They stopped contributing to their employees' 401k.
What?
They were matching 5% or something. They stopped altogether. No longer matching. So that's a big sign too, if you ask me.
Let me share another big sign. My main business is Medicare eligible health insurance. So if you are on Medicare and you want to have help, give me a call. But a lot of the companies, the big nationwide, like United Healthcare, Humana's, the Anthem Blue Cross, like the big ones, they're making about half of their products are not commissionable next year to the agents who sell them. So the good news is now I have less options to present to my clients, because I'm not going to sell a product unless I can make money on it. But the bad news is now that leaves the clients with less options. But also, is it a sign that Medicare, the government, the federal side of things, is going to be limiting some stuff? I may be looking for, I hope not, but I may be looking for a new career before long. I certainly hope not. I need to keep this career going for 20 more years or so. But that's kind of scary for me. I was literally in a training this morning where they're like, you know what? Half of these products are not, several of these companies are not paying commissions anymore on their products. And thankfully there's several products that they are still offering and telling agents, look, you can sell this one and make money, but all of these ones over here, don't sell those ones. I think there's a little bit that goes into it, but it's kind of scary when huge national health insurance companies are cutting back commissions to their agents right before annual enrollment period.
Yeah. That means something.
It's a big indicator of where the money's going to be, where things are changing.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Scott, and we only have a few more minutes left, but there was that video that I shared with you about that guy who was an ex-Satanist. And he said that he was at the last time he's converted to Christianity, but he was an ex-Satanist, and he was the leader in South Africa of his sect of Satanism. And he would go to the world meetings of all the Satanists, and the things that they would get together and they would put forth their agenda. This is what we want to do to the world over the next 9 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that in 2027, on the agenda, and God may not allow this, I don't think he will, but the devil and his kingdom, they make their plans. And then God says, yeah, you thought, but the devil's plans are that by 2027, they want to have the one world religion. And then on the podcast I was watching, the guy says, well, what's going to make these religions, how are they going to be able to force these religions to submit to this? And he's like, oh, I forgot to mention that by then we'll have the one world economy. And I'm like, oh crap, that means they're going to have to crash the current economy and build the new economy before 2027. Now, again, I'm not, trying to scare anybody or fearmonger or anything. And frankly, I don't know that is, I mean, we've had those types of predictions over the last several years as well. So moving forward, it's like, okay, I'm still going to be watchful. I'm still going to get more gold and silver in my portfolio. You know what I mean? I'm still going to have food storage. I'm going to prepare, because if that does happen, I want to be ready for it. If it doesn't happen, I'll be okay either way. That's what my plan is to be okay either way. But the reality is that if that's on their radar, and that's on the world, the elite and the deep state and all those wicked people's radar to do something like that, it's just nice to know their plans, because then we can make plans to counteract their plans.
Yeah, I want to make a correction real quick. I think I said Venezuela, I meant Argentina. Milei is in Argentina, which their peso is collapsing. Venezuela is where the U.S. is attacking drug boats and blowing them out of the water. So I want to make that correction. Did that in the chat. If I did say Venezuela, right? Not Argentina.
You did. Yeah, you were saying Venezuela. I'm like, I thought Venezuela already had the financial collapse like 5 years ago.
Well, that's Maduro. They're messed up as well, and they're fighting with their neighbors as well about oil. So that's a big mess down there too. But yeah, Argentina in particular, it is Milei in Argentina. So make that correction. But what else here? We only got a few minutes left.
A few minutes left. What's your final big one, Shane?
Oh, geez. Let's see here. Okay, here's my final big one. Ready?
You just blew the ears off.
I can't do it. You know what that is?
That is a shofar.
There we go. Well, this is not an actual shofar. This is a bullhorn, not a ram's horn. But
it's an attempt.
Call it the shofar. So that's something that's been in my family since I was a kid. And but do you know why am I blowing the shofar?
Because those were blown yesterday in Israel.
Yesterday, but early today here, right? It's like 9 hours difference or something, right?
Isn't that weird? Yesterday is today.
Like it's 100 shofars blown all at the same time, one big blast. Never been. They do it every year, I guess, at the end of the Feast of Trumpets, at the end of Rosh Hashanah. But it's never been televised, never been broadcast. Apparently, they did that. Been looking for it because I saw announcements for it, but I haven't actually seen the broadcast itself. So I'm assuming it took place, but I'm not seeing anything.
Because yesterday was the Hebrew New Year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so whenever they have a Hebrew New Year, and what's interesting about the Hebrew traditions is that every 50 years they have a super whatever, and then every so many years they have a whole where they do things. I don't know what this one is. It could be something specific or something special. I'll have to look into that. But I mean, there's a lot of coinciding with Hebrew calendars and what God does in his methods. So whenever there's some kind of Hebrew calendar, I actually, on my Google Calendar, you can go to other calendars and you can subscribe to different calendars. And I subscribe to the Jewish calendar, Jewish holidays, and the Hebrew calendar, so that I can see those dates coming up and have those on because I like that kind of stuff.
And they also coincide with lunar and solar eclipses, as well as other events in the sky. Again, signs.
Yep.
So they are significant.
Wonders. Definitely signs and wonders. Like, it's interesting because all these events, everything going on in the world, the turmoil, the wars, the rumors of wars, the economic crises, the deep state, the surveillance state, all these things. What are they telling us? They're telling us we need to up our game, up our preparedness, increase our surplus, increase that which we've already done, and create redundancies, right? Don't let these fear or create more fear in your life, but let them create more fire for living better, getting right with God, and preserving your family. Right? The stronger we can be, the better our communities can be. Because as we create stronger, prepared households, that bleeds into the community and creates stronger and more prepared communities, right? That's the mission. That's the goal. That's why we're doing this.
Amen to that. Yep.
All right. Well, anything else? Final thoughts? Nope. Yes.
Well, the shofar is supposed to mean something, right? There's supposed to be significance behind it. And there's a lot of reasons to blow the shofar. And so I would blow it tonight just as a warning voice, maybe a call to arms, a reminder, a call to repentance. I mean, it kind of means all those kinds of things. And maybe I'll try and blow it more often here as a kind of reminder. But I've always been kind of proud of being able to blow that shofar and being good at it. And no, I kind of whiffed at it there. But
well, it is a symbol of a wake-up call, a spiritual wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That we all need to have. And I think we had, as a nation, as a world even. There's a lot of people that I think have been hiding in the shadows. There's a lot of people. There's an old saying is that all evil needs is for good men to do nothing. And the idea also that if you have something good, I think as Jordan Peterson says, if you have something good to say, we haven't referenced him in a while. If you have something good to say to bring goodness into the world and you don't say it, that means in some way you're complicit with the bad things that are happening because you had something to stop it and you didn't. And that's another thing that's why the revelation of the method is real. That's why the evil has to reveal their plans, is because they say basically, if we tell you what we're going to do and you don't stop us, that quote unquote gives us permission to then go forth and do it. And so when we see these guys do their revelations of the method, and then we need to step up and stop it so that we can curb the tide. God's going to win in the end, and I'm not worried about that. But in the meantime, what can we do to show that we're willing to do our part to make sure that the game has some cool, winning plays until the end, all the way through till the end. So I want to be part of the winning plays that happen all the way through to the end, is so that we can win the final battle. But guys, thank you so much for listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared. You've been great. This has been a fun conversation. September is crazy. Let's see what October brings with next month. Just remember quickly to go to preppertalkradio.com/good life and check out our liver support there. Check out the liver support. I promise you're not going to get a higher quality for a better price, with the full transparency of all the ingredients that are in it anywhere on the market, anywhere, it's Costco, Amazon, anywhere. So with that in mind, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you next week.
See you guys.